A bottle of your favorite Rush energy drink and boost your daily activities. Rush Energy keeps you going. This ad is FDA approved. You know, we all have those days when you're low on everything: energy, time, cash, and even airtime and data. And that's why MTN Extra Time is an airtime and data advanced service that allows you to make calls or browse the internet even when you have insufficient balance. All you have to do is dial star 506 hash. Yeah, star 506 hash. Go through the prompts and select the amount of airtime and data you need. It's really that simple. Doing your favorite things on MTN means you don't get interrupted even when you are low on airtime or data. Terms and conditions apply. Well, today we have part 3 of our conversation about kidneys, your kidney and kidney health. Dr. Yaw Osafo is the CEO of Medicas Hospital Mampong, Equiapim and Medina Firestone. Doc!
Lexis!
Akwaba.
Yeah.
Good to see you. How are you?
Kwame, I'm not well.
Hey!
Can't you see I haven't slept?
How am I going to see that?
Oh.
You look very good. You look like you've had a very good rest. I mean, look at your eyes. Sexy eyes.
Kwame,
Doctor, sexy eyes, doctor.
Kwame, you are not in this country. It's about to ho. And a Chris shooting. Last night to this morning. Man, you.
Wanda.
Blasters. Still. Kwame Mebre.
Kuse.
Man, you. Emfa. Blasters. Between Shebi Jesse.
And no quad. And no cry. I say cry. Hey.
The only thing that is keeping me going.
Not.
It's Presec.
That's right.
I'm starting to say me National Science and Maths quiz. Let me share, get to see Joy News.
Thank
Let
you.
me hear playback.
Oh my God.
That's the only thing.
Our
The
God
blue
is
shirt
great.
magicians.
Our God is great.
Is great.
This year we're going for number 8.
To say they be Jai Bibia, be National Science and Maths quiz support.
Oh, but the Black Stars will come through. Don't worry.
Kwame, me patro. Anka Cote d'Ivoire were here. I've been planning to go, but after what I saw, yeah, my family can hear the forefront. Go to Cote d'Ivoire to go and watch them. Right, so Kwame, those of us who are crazy about football, this is a good time for us.
I know.
So, those of the United Persuasion. But yes, we have been talking about the kidney the past 3 weeks. This today is the 3rd week of the conversation. And Kwame, today I want us to look at another aspect of kidney disease.
Mm-hmm.
And today I want us to look at infections of the kidney.
Okay.
We've been having our, should I call it the dialysis crisis, as part of the numerous things that we have confronting us in our health sector. We've added the dialysis conversation. And what I want to do with these conversations is that I just want us to know why that conversation is important, why that dialysis then it's important. People sometimes don't quite get it. I think it is something that we've jammed onto. So with all these different aspects of kidney function or kidney disease, all sometimes go back to the need for dialysis. And today we will talk about dialysis in the context of acute pyelonephritis. So Kwame, that's the term that I am.
Pylo.
Yeah, pylon. So pylo, DCG4 pylo. Pyelonephritis. Pyelonephritis. Kwame, this term typically refers to bacterial infection of the substance of the kidney or of the kidneys. Bacterial infection of the kidney. Of course, in simple terms, or if you want to really look at it, then we just refer to infections of the kidney, which could be due to bacteria, viruses, parasites, fungi, but usually would restrict the term to bacterial infections of the kidney. This condition is far more common in women than men, all things being equal. At least over the women. Individuals who tend to have recurrent kidney infection most likely have some structural abnormality, and that's why 3 weeks ago we started with the structure of the kidney, the anatomy, the natural structure of the kidney. Sometimes if things don't form properly with all of its structures, it impedes flow of urine, and this can lead to individuals having recurrent infections. You're not supposed to have infections of the substance of the kidney. So if it becomes recurrent, then your doctor would think that there is some structural abnormality with the urinary tract, that whole pathway starting from the kidney all the way to the urethral orifice, that point where the urine comes out. Again, pyelonephritis or infections of the kidney, bacterial infection of the kidney, is very common in girls or pregnant women, especially after some form of instrumentation or what we call catheterization has been done. So catheterization is a process by which we introduce a tube into the bladder to aid the flow of urine. So sometimes, for one reason or the other, doctors may need to do that to aid the flow of urine from the bladder outwards. And unfortunately, in doing so, we may introduce bacteria into the urinary tract. Usually, it's an ascending infection. What do we mean by an ascending infection? I already discussed the anatomical location of the kidney in the loin area.
Yeah.
It's in the abdomen. And then the outlet of urine is down there. So typically things will flow from up, or the urine will flow from upstairs and it comes out down there. But for the infection of the substance of the kidney to happen, usually you have bacteria going from down there all the way up to the kidney. So that is what we mean by an ascending infection. So if I am, for example, passing a catheter because a man comes to me saying that, doctor, I feel a strong urge to void, but since morning, no urine, and I deem the patient to be obstructed, I will pass that rubber catheter into the penis, into the bladder, to try and get the urine out. In doing so, if I don't maintain sterile techniques, and even sometimes with the best sterile techniques, you will still risk introducing bacteria. They get into the urethra or the penis, then they ascend into the bladder, then they go up the tube that connects the bladder to the kidney called the ureter, and it gets into the substance of the kidney, causing what we call an acute pyelonephritis. So sometimes we will say it's iatrogenic, meaning we doctors or healthcare professionals will be the ones to have caused it. In women with normal urinary tracts, it is because they've had what we call colonization of the 18 with bacteria. And then the bacteria somehow jumps from that area into the specific point where urine comes out, and then ascends into the bladder, into the tube that connects it to the kidney, and then you get the infection. So a woman may have an infection of the 18, and they may come to see their doctor that they have a discharge. Then it is not unusual that if that is not dealt with properly, they may then get a urine tract infection and subsequently develop a pyelonephritis. So Kwame, I hope you're seeing the sequence of things.
Yeah.
So that is what we mean by the ascending infection. Now, you have a whole host of bacteria that have been identified as being culprits when we talk about a pyelonephritis or a bacterial infection of the kidney. Kwame, some of them have some very fanciful names. Let me share a few with you, not to frighten you, but I'm sure you are familiar with the first one, E. coli.
Ah, right.
Yes, E. coli. E. coli, I think a lot of people would-
Escherichia.
Escherichia coli.
Again.
E. coli.
That be me scientific name no
Obebu so boda oche obebisa yebebisa botwefo no obu to be ombeto mumu ni answer wo Escherichia coli. Another is called Proteus, another Klebsiella, and then Pseudomonas. These are some of the bacteria that can cause infection of the kidney. Sometimes certain situations also predispose the individual to developing or to be at a higher risk of developing a bacterial infection of the kidney. The first one is pregnancy. So pregnancy can lead to an obstruction because with pregnancy, month on month or week by week, the fetus is growing and the uterus is getting bigger. But the uterus rises from the pelvis, gets into the abdomen, and it's in the same region as the tube that connects the bladder to the kidney. And it can press on it and slow down the urine flow. And that leads to some obstruction. Stones, what we call renal stones, calculi, can form anywhere along the urinary tract and also cause some obstruction. And I don't mean the stones by the roadside. When we talk about stones in medical terms, these are crystal-like substances. I always use the example of the salt that is mined in at Adan as an example. These days we have the ground form of it, but the rock type of salt is what we would refer to as stones. We also have something we call strictures. Strictures are scars that are formed after you get a terrible infection anywhere along the tract, and it heals. It may sometimes form a scar, a stricture, which is called a stricture, which may obstruct flow. We also have tumors. These are abnormal growths that can also cause an obstruction to urine flow. Prostate enlargement in men is also a reason why urine will not flow freely. And when urine stays in one point for a long time, because it's a waste product, it then creates the perfect conditions for bacteria to thrive. We also have a situation we call a neurogenic bladder. The bladder functions under nerve control, and if for any number of reasons, it could be trauma to your spine, for example, it could be diseases such as multiple sclerosis that affects the nerves in that whole area, you develop something we call a neurogenic bladder, meaning the bladder no longer is able to perform. When we take the electricity wire that brings electrical voltage to power your lights, the television, when somebody cuts the wire, then the whole place goes dark, or you lose power to your computer and to the entire studio. So that's what a neurogenic bladder is. So this is by way of the how and the why and the causes of bacterial infection. Well, I mean, if one has bacterial infection of the kidney, how would they know? So let's look at the symptoms and signs. The full expression is acute pyelonephritis. That's what we're talking about. Acute means the patient will develop a rapid onset, a sudden onset of chills and fever. You know, that's usually the first thing that happens. Rapid onset or sudden onset of chills and fever. Meaning one moment you feel as if it's winter time, although temperature is 34 degrees outside, having very, very bad chills. And then the next moment, your body is hot. You're really, really hot. Your body temperature just goes up. Then the next thing they may develop is loin pain, or what we call flank pain. So the loin area, as I described, they feel pain in that region. Sometimes even taking in a deep breath, they have to catch their breath or hold it at a point just because they have so much pain in that region, the region of the loin. Then as things progress, they develop nausea and they may actually vomit. Some of them may also develop what we call lower urinary tract symptoms at the same time. Because remember, we said it was an ascending thing. So Kwame, the infection is moving from the urethra, which is a short tube that in men runs the entire length of the penis. For example, in women, it's a very, very short one. You don't actually see it. You just see the opening of it. So you may have burning pain when you pass urine. A term we use to describe it is dysuria. So when you have burning pain as you void, that is dysuria. And then you also get what we call frequency of urination. Because of all of the infection that's happening in the bladder, because from the urethra, the bacteria enters the bladder, causes an inflammation of the bladder, which we call a cystitis. And this will cause an irritation of the bladder. So although the bladder is not full, you feel the urge to urinate. You go and then you pass very, very scanty volumes of urine all the time. So these two symptoms are not directly related to the kidney, which is further upstairs, but they sometimes occur concurrently with the first three symptoms that I talked about. Then your doctor typically will put you on his couch, ask you to sit up on the couch, and he would gently, with a fist, gently hit the costovertebral area or the loin area, as we have described. And if you really have a bacterial infection of the kidney, most people will jump off the couch. It's very, very painful.
Wow.
When we do that. We're literally touching the inflamed kidney. Right. So a pyelonephritis, itis at the end of most medical terms, means inflammation. And I've talked about the cardinal features of inflammation in the studio before. Simply pain is one of the features, and then you get swelling. So as a kidney swell, that restrictive capsule that is around the kidney is stretched, and that's what causes a lot of the pain and the tenderness that we are able to elicit when we gently hit you in that region. So that usually would give your doctor the diagnosis that you probably have an acute pyelonephritis. Kwame, I would tell everybody listening that it is potentially a dangerous medical condition with fatalities. Indeed, there was a study done by one of our senior colleagues, a nephrologist, and they looked at Kolebu Teaching Hospital and Konfanoche Teaching Hospital and mortality figures over a 20-year period. And Kwame, number 1 and 2 as the causes of renal mortality, that's kidney deaths, related deaths, chronic kidney disease, and then acute pyelonephritis. This very topic that we're talking about.
Wow.
These were the top 2 causes of death between 1994 and 2004 when they did post-mortem review of kidney-related deaths. They realized that the top 2 causes were chronic kidney disease and acute pyelonephritis. So if we do not handle this particular infection well, it may or it can lead to some fatalities. So
Wow.
that's actually a very, very deadly condition.
It's very serious, eh?
Yes.
Wow.
It is.
If you have any questions about this condition or what we've talked about today, you can send me a WhatsApp on 055-111-1997 or call us on 0302-216-541. 0302-216-541. Okay.
Right. So, Kwame, the diagnosis is also not that difficult. I think we have the tools to diagnose it, to have a reasonable level of suspicion in most parts of the world, of this country. Right. So, a very simple analysis of the urine, something we call, most places they will call a urine RE, but the proper expression is a urinalysis, should be able to give you enough working evidence that an individual has a urinary tract infection and possibly an acute pyelonephritis. If you have the facilities, then you can actually do what we call a urine culture. Kwame, a culture is a microbiological procedure that we undertake to grow bacteria or microorganisms in the laboratory under specified conditions. So that is what a culture means. So a urine culture, we take a urine sample and we would use the appropriate growth medium and certain conditions in the laboratory and try and grow the E. coli I talked about, the Klebsiella I spoke about, the Pseudomonas, and the other types of bacteria that are the usual suspects. And the culture is very, very important because once we grow something in the laboratory, then we do what we call antibiotic sensitivity testing. We test different antibiotics against the organism that we grow. And the lab is able to then advise the clinician as to the sensitivity pattern. And then we choose and prescribe the appropriate antibiotic to the patient so that the pharmacy is able to supply. This is where I tell people that the most expensive antibiotic is not necessarily the most effective one. You know, sometimes you will have the newer ones or the more expensive ones. Actually, the organism is resistant to that. So the ability to culture urine is very good, but it requires a certain level of sophistication, and I know that is not available in all facilities in this country.
It's not?
It should be, but it is not.
Wow.
Unfortunately, it's not. It requires a certain level of sophistication, both in terms of the personnel, the human resource. You need to have people like clinical microbiologists. You need to have medical laboratory scientists who are trained in that area. The gadgets or the equipment needed in the lab are relatively much more expensive. But I'm saying relatively, but Kwame, it's not something that is out of our reach. But the way we spend resources in this country, even some of our phones are more expensive than some of these gadgets, but relatively it's a bit more expensive. Then an ultrasound scan. Again, scans are far more common. Depending on which part of the country you find yourself, you may have a scan. But then again, the challenge also then will be the human resource. We do have radiologists, specialists who will be able to properly identify. But these are relatively easier techniques available to us for us to clinch the diagnosis. And once the diagnosis is clinched, treatment is quite straightforward. You need appropriate antibiotics. But Kwame, let me share some preventive tips before we close. To prevent acute kidney infection, we need to prevent UTIs. And in doing that, if you're a female and you're sexually active, it's a risk. So you should void immediately after sexual intercourse. The whole act of sexual intercourse introduces bacteria into the urinary tract, and therefore voiding immediately afterwards helps to wash and reduce your bacterial load.
Use another synonym for the void.
Urinate. Right. So you should urinate immediately after sexual intercourse. Right. Females should also avoid the use of
what about men? It's okay.
The use of the diaphragm as a family planning method also has it adds another layer of risk. So it's good, but it adds another layer of risk. So if you can choose another method, that's fine. Cranberry juice is good. You should try and drink a lot of it regularly if you can afford it. And then the last point is I mean, they don't know what they can. I see a drew a young, you know, and I had the SIRA. So, these are some of the preventive tips for preventing UTIs and therefore preventing bacterial infection of the kidneys
or acute pyelonephritis.
Presec boy.
I mean, come on. 3 points. Question of the day.
That's right.
3 over 3. I mean.
Blue.
I can't do this.
But for the Dr. Benny.
Oh, Charlie. It's a very sad thing.
Yes. Tomorrow they should be Thursday.
Tomorrow it will be something else. Anyway, but this has been some really good education, and we're grateful, Doc. What are we looking at next? Because we're not done with this kidney conversation.
We're not done. Next week we're doing chronic kidney disease. Chronic kidney disease. All the dialysis story, chronic kidney disease. If you have a history of diabetes, if you have a history of hypertension, if you know somebody with diabetes or hypertension, next week, don't miss the show.
Right, that's good. Well, good thing is, I mean, earlier this week, I came by Medicas Hospital and I saw your dialysis renal unit, right?
Yep.
So it looks really good and sophisticated.
Kwame.
Wow.
Machine and a boy do $15,000 a pop.
Wow.
Yes. We've got 4 now. We're hoping eventually when we get up to speed, we'll get up to 10. We need it.
And I saw
it's a need.
Sophisticated
the water treatment.
Carbon treatment, whatever.
Yeah, the water treatment. Reverse osmosis machine. Yes.
Yeah.
Kwame, it's all very expensive. We need to get the water up to what we call dialysis grade. And your pure water, no.
Oh, sir.
Pure water, look, pure bear times 10. I mean, we're going to pass all of this through somebody's blood. To dialyze them, so risk of infection, electrolyte imbalance. So it is a very sophisticated unit. It is a very sophisticated, and we really need to have a conversation about it in this country and look at financing it, both in the private sector and in the public sector hospitals. But this is our contribution.
Yes, I'm happy that Medicas Hospital Mampong now has a good renal unit for dialysis and whatnot. I personally went there earlier this week and I saw the setup. Dr. Amu, is that his name?
Dr. Nimadu.
Nimadu, yes, Dr. Nimadu and his crew putting up a very lovely unit there. So if you're around Adenta, Medina, East Legon, Mampong, wherever it is, you don't need to,
come all the way to town, join the queue.
Just
come up the mountain.
Yeah. Doc, any number to reach out to you on?
Yeah, 0501 477 340. 0501 477 340. That's our WhatsApp line as well, and our regular phone line as well. And somebody will be on hand to talk to you.
Dr. Yaw Osafo is CEO of Medicas Hospital Mampo Equiapim. Stay tuned in.